Hi, this is Naima Tryman, and today is day 8 of the blog series that I'm doing on my book, Praying for Peace, A Journey to Serenity. When I last left off, it was the late spring of 2000. I had just taken a year off of school because I had a really hard time my freshman year, so I'd taken a year off of school, taken the exam to be a firefighter, and started coaching basketball. I turned down the fire department job and decided to go back to school to play basketball and softball. And I also had a double major, sociology and mathematics education. The plan at that point was to be a high school math teacher while I got a master's in counseling and then be probably a counselor. One other substantial thing happened that spring that I think is worthy of mention is that I converted to the Catholic faith. I was raised in the Methodist church, but as I spoke about in my last blog, that was it was more for appearances. That was more for my father because going to church is the right thing to do. So we did, but it wasn't really a faith thing. It was more of a keeping up appearances thing. So my parents got separated. We stopped going to church, and Touched by an Angel was my church, and but I felt an emptiness, particularly after the car accident that I had. I felt like I was missing something that there was this spiritual yearning that I had, and I wanted to do something about it. So at the time, I was 19, going on 20. My mother's whole family was Catholic, devoutly Catholic, but my father despised the Catholic Church, and so I wasn't raised around that faith, but my grandmother, my aunts, rosaries and candles and icons and all kinds of stuff all over the house growing up. So I went to the church that my cousins went to. I figured I would start there, and then if I didn't like that, then I would try a different church. I liked the peace. I liked a lot about it. I liked that you didn't have to get dressed up. That was big. That I could go in like jeans and like a nice shirt or whatever, and I didn't have to wear dresses or I didn't have to be uncomfortable, because that was my experience of church growing up, and I hated that. I liked that the service was only an hour. You went to church at 11, you got out at 12, maybe 12:10. Loved that, and it was a very peaceful environment. There's a part of me that I love hearing good speakers. I think it's part of the reasons that I'm aspiring to be a motivational speaker. I've always loved hearing good speakers, and I like hearing people that are dynamic and they get all excited and all that. But I've never really been built to deal with that every Sunday for 3-hour service. So the pastor was a man named Father Nickus, and I grew to absolutely adore this man, but my first encounter with him was not one that drew me to the church, quite honestly. It took a minute for me to get used to the way that he spoke. In many ways, I thought that he sort of had a way of droning, but I kept coming back. I think the peace of that church and the community of that church kept me coming back, and lo and behold, I decided that I wanted to convert to the Catholic faith and that I wanted to become a member of this church, which was St. Peter Claver. And instead of doing, I think it's called RICA, that's what the traditional adult education is for the Catholic Church. I didn't do anything traditional. I would meet with Father Nickus every Tuesday night for an hour or two. We'd talk about some things. He would give me some literature to read. The next week I'd come back, he'd ask me about that literature and talk to me a little bit more. And after a couple months of this, during Holy Week, Holy Thursday service, I believe, or was it Holy Saturday? Maybe it was Holy Saturday, I think. I think it was the night before Easter. I took I don't know, it could have been a Thursday, I'm not sure. Took my first communion and did confirmation and became Catholic. And Father Nickus and I became close to two people in that church. One was Father Nickus, and one was my good friend Marisol, who I've remained incredibly close with since then. And I started going to church every Sunday, and I started to become very devout. let's see, that's Father Nick is up there in the corner, and I think I've shown Marisol before. That's Marisol down there in the middle right there. So, things seemed to be resolved for me. I had found a new school. I got a full scholarship. I wasn't thinking about money for school, to play sports. I found a new faith. I was coaching basketball, and I enjoyed that. And the middle school girls that I was coaching that summer, I started to get really close to. So things seemed like they were going pretty smooth. I spent that summer just lifeguarding and coaching summer league basketball, and the girls would come and hang out with me, and sometimes they'd come hang out with me at my house. And I think that was the first summer we went on a camping trip. I took them camping, and they really became like my little sisters, and I started to really recognize this affinity that I had for kids, and especially teenagers that were in the midst of a lot of transitions in their life, and in many ways confused about a lot of things. So that was a good summer. I was still drinking pretty often. One thing about my drinking before it truly became problematic was that I always drank a lot, but I was always able to find somebody that drank just as much as me, so it seemed normal, and I didn't realize that it wasn't normal to be drunk every single night. I figured if I could handle it, if I could pay for it, and I wasn't hurting anybody, it was fine. So I started school at Felician College, which is a Catholic college. That just kind of happened to coincide with my conversion. It wasn't really done intentionally. That's where my friend Zakia was playing basketball, and we became roommates. We had played together in high school, and we were, she was one of my best friends. And I started off like a ball of fire, double major, 19 credits, 2 sports. I was, up early, working out. In college, softball's 2 seasons, so there's like a fall season. That's not the official season, but there's a fall season, and then the official season's in the spring. So I would have practice for softball, but then I would also spend 2 hours in the gym. Like, I was committed to having a better year than I did my freshman year, and I felt strongly that I should be the starting point guard on top of that, so I wanted to make sure that was going to be the case. And it seemed like things were going to be, were going to go well, and but as usual, I found that one person that I could drink with every night, and it was a girl named Myrna, and we became really fast friends, and we became really close friends really quickly, and I started to develop an attraction to her, and I didn't really, it wasn't the first time in my life that I had felt, some odd feelings for, a girl, but I'd always kind of shoved them to the back, and one day she made a comment to me, actually, and it made me uncomfortable, but we talked about it, and next thing I knew, I had a girlfriend, and this was all in the fall of 2000 as I was getting ready for the basketball season, and so I spent all my time with her, and drinking and my girlfriend took precedence over everything else, and I stopped working out, and I didn't even hang out in the cafeteria with my friends anymore. Like, I would, I stopped going to class. I went way off the deep end. So I went from 19 credits, I dropped 2 classes and went down to 13, and then I failed 2 classes, so I only passed 7 credits that semester. I started the basketball season off well. I was in, pretty decent shape, and I started the first 2 games of the season, as well as all the scrimmages, and it looked like we were going to be really good, and early in the season I developed athletic asthma. So I'd never had an asthma attack or anything like that, but when I got on the basketball court, I wheezed, and I had been sick, and I ran through it, and I think that's what really developed it. But anyway, the trainer gave me an athletic pump, and I tried to get through that, but my conditioning wouldn't return. And those first 2 games that I started, one of the first 2 games that I played in that I started, we were at a tournament in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania, and I got a concussion. Diving for a loose ball. Girl was running full speed. Her knee ran right into my face, right where the plates are. So, I went to the hospital in an ambulance, and I was restricted from playing for a couple of days and practicing and all that. So, my first game back was 9 days later, and I got another concussion. So that's 2 in 9 days, and so that was going to sideline me for a while anyway. But 3 or 4 days later, the grades came out, and I was ineligible, and so it didn't matter. I wasn't going to be playing anymore anyway. So, now I was really disheartened. I started getting really drunk really often. I stayed on campus because I didn't really want to be at home over the break. So, um, all I did was sit around and drink all day. And it wasn't long before I found out that I was going to lose my scholarship. And I had to do the best I could to try and save face. So I took 21 credits in the spring. And I did well. I finished with a 3.4, but it wasn't enough. I had basically squandered a $20,000 scholarship, and the coaches. I never even really got on a softball field. The time that I played softball in the fall didn't count, and the time that they were paying for me to play, which was the spring, I never got on the field, and I only played half a basketball season. So although I had fared well in the spring, the coaches told me I could come back, I could play for free, and basically figure out a way to pay for school. And then if I did well in school, that they would give me my scholarship back for my senior year. And $20,000 a year private Catholic school, I couldn't afford, so I had to go home. I also, Myrna and I broke up, and that was kind of devastating for me. That was really my first substantial relationship. I mean, it was only 6 months, but I hadn't had a lot of relationships in my life. And then there was this guilt. There was, I didn't want to be different. I spent enough time in my life different. I was, light skinned. I didn't feel like I necessarily fit in with the black kids or the white kids. I was a tomboy. I didn't, necessarily feel like I fit in with the girls or the boys. And, I didn't want to be different in another way. And here comes, I'm a lesbian. And then on top of that, I've just become devout in my Catholic faith, not realizing that this was going to be coming. So I actually confessed my relationship to a priest on campus, and it was a face-to-face confession too, so that was kind of awkward. And I thought that I was going to be done with that life, but that wasn't to be, because I am who I am, and I was made the way I was made. So I went home pretty embarrassed, and I didn't know what my next move was going to be. I applied to the local school, which was Montclair State University, and I was going to commute. I was done playing sports. I was going to live at home and commute and go back and forth to school. So that brings us to the end of chapter 8, and talk about that summer and the following year in the next blog, which hopefully won't be quite as long. But the story at this point is that my drinking is really starting to become problematic. It's affecting everything that I've done. I've now walked away from one scholarship and lost the second one because I was miserable, and I was, I couldn't get in shape, and I didn't realize the damage that I was doing drinking every single night. And my depression was growing, my anxiety was growing, my pain was growing. And it wouldn't be too much longer before things really started to come to a head. But that's all for now. Chapter 9 up next. Take care.